Well, as you may or may not know, a while back when I was getting ready to turn 70, and you got to love these little light reflection things I got going on in my glasses, but I prefer to have my glasses on versus having my glasses off. So, any hoots, as I approached 70, which is going on 3 years ago now, I had it in my mind I was going to start making a journal, and I was going to call it 70 and Out. And I was going to hopefully make journal entries up until the day I die, about the things I've been doing day in, day out. And then I didn't do it, and then I didn't do it again, and then I continued not to do it. And then I met a lawyer, a very nice lady named Melissa, and we sat around all afternoon, and somehow or another she got my stories going, and I only got a few, like who knows how many, but a few. And I sat there and I spewed my stories pretty much for a good 3 hours in the afternoon. She didn't bill me for it, so that was good too. But it was nice to meet her. We sort of kept in touch for a while, and she encouraged me to start doing my journal. And so I sort of looked into it and started doing the journal, and it was interesting. It sort of was good because what I discovered was that as each day passed, I really didn't remember much of what I did during that day, much less the day before. And I did it, and I did it, and I did it, and I did it. And I go, well, but I want to be sure I'm doing this for me and not anyone else, except those that might be interested in reading this journal after I'm sort of gone. And I just sort of kept doing it, and then my fingers sort of got not difficult, but I would read back and I go, it doesn't make any sense at all. It makes sense to me because I lived it, but it doesn't make any sense at all. And I shelved the thing probably the end of March, 1st of April, haven't touched it. And now I got re-encouraged, which I've been thinking about doing anyway, to start recording these things. And here I am. So I'm going to start doing this on a daily basis. Not so much as a recap of my day. That's sort of silly. I think it's sort of silly, but why not, kind of a thing. So I'm going to go backwards on this first one, and I'm going to go back all the way to the early '80s and share with you what I consider the greatest story in golf, the best story in golf. Very few people could probably believe it, and very few others could probably accomplish it. But it happened, and so I'll share it. So, working at the Los Angeles Country Club, which was quite an honor. I had no business being there, but it was quite an honor. Um, Went out to play one Thursday morning because I was going to work in the afternoon. And this young gentleman, about my age, came up on the first tee and asked if he could come along. I said, sure, let's go. Let's have a good time. On the North Course, which is sort of like if you want to have breakfast, but you got to go kill your own pig and raise your own chickens. That's how much work the North Course is. But it is LA Country Club North. So off we went. Guy's name was Steve, and we had I would guess a pretty good time. And as the day sort of started winding down, he says, "Well, can we do this again?" And I said, "Well, sure." I said, "Anytime you're in town and have access, let's do it." He says, "Well, I'm going to be here all week," and that caught me by a little bit by surprise because to be a guest of a member for an entire week at the Los Angeles Country Club is unique, to say the least. So, any hoots, we played a couple more times, had a great time. End of the week comes, and Steve says, well, let's keep in touch. I said, absolutely. He said, here's my address. And he says, well, I'll give you mine. He says, and he wrote out this interesting address. And I said, well, I'm sure you're going to tell me the story about this one, Steve. He says, yeah, I had no idea what his last name was, by the way. And he says, yeah. So, and he introduced himself as Stephen Rockefeller. And I go, well, very cool, because most people I know that are of this, whatever level of, respect is earned because of your name, be it a performer or an athlete or someone in the headlines. Um, everybody's, we're all people, we're all down to earth, and he was very much a real deal, So the address he had was in code, and so I guess when you write a Rockefeller, you write to this code, and so Christmas time, send the card, got a card back, et cetera, et cetera. Then about well, maybe 2 years down the road, I'm working in the golf shop one day. It might not have been 2 years, but I'm working in the golf shop one day, and the phone rings, and it's for me, and he says, "Hey, Don, Steve Rockefeller." Oh, hey man, how you doing, Stephen? He says, "Doing great down here in the desert, visiting my wife's family. How about you come down here? We'll play some golf." Next day was my day off. I said, "Well, when do you want to play?" He says, "Anytime." I said, "Well, again, tomorrow's my day off. Where would you like to play?" He says, "Well, how about La Quinta?" I said, "Well, let me get your phone number, and of course, again, this is way before cell phones. It's a landline. And let me call down to La Quinta and make some arrangements, So I called La Quinta, said who I was, and LA Country Club, and um, I have a friend, Stephen Rockefeller, and he'd like to come play golf with me tomorrow. Is that okay? And they said, absolutely, positively. Come on down. What time you want to play? I said, hang on. I called Steve back. I said, what time you want to go? He says, sunrise. Well, okay. So I, get back on the phone with La Quinta. Says, I think we'll be there when the sun's coming up. And he says, that's fine. And so sunrise for me means I got to be getting up at 2:30, maybe even 2 o'clock in the morning to drive down to Palm Springs. Took my little 083 Nissan pickup truck down there and pulled into their home. And as soon as I pulled in, Steve comes outside. I said, "Well, want to take one of your cars?" Or he says, "No, man, your truck's fine." I said, "Okay, come on." And he threw his clubs in the back, and off we went to La Quinta. We pulled up to the gate. Guard says, "Can I help you?" Looking at my 1983 Nissan pickup truck. And I said, "Yes, sir. We have a tea time at sunrise." And he says, "Seriously?" Yeah, I said, "Yes, sir." Um, "What's your name?" I said, "My name is Don Rubenstein. This is Stephen Rockefeller." Up goes the gate. In we go. Hit a couple of balls. It meant everybody in the golf shop. Everybody was there at sunrise, and it was chilly. It was definitely chilly. And off we go, and this lady joined us. And so anyway, so Steve and I, we played golf, and we played golf. We played golf all day long. Now, I'm not a very good golfer. I love the game. I love to compete in the game, but I'm the first one to share with you that I am not a very good golfer. So anyway, we literally played until the sun set. That was, maybe 4:30, 5 o'clock. So I'm taking Steve back to the house, and I said, "Man, it sure was fun." And he says, "Well, Don, you're going to stay for dinner." And my general practice, when someone, a member of the club, or invites me to dinner, I will say, well, as I did this time, I said, "Steve, please allow me to politely decline." He says, "Don, you're staying for dinner." Then I got to thinking, how often does one, moi, get to enjoy dinner with the Rockefellers? So anyway, we get to the house. Dinner wasn't ready yet. Everybody's sitting around this big old round dining room table playing a brand new game that just came out called Trivial Pursuit. So anyway, so Steve and I sit down at the table, and Steve rolls the dice. And well, my hair looks like it jumped, doesn't it? And um, he lands on what I guess is called literature. So he pulls out the card, hands me the card to ask him the question, who wrote the book, "I Don't Want to Be Vice President of Anything"? I knew what the answer was. Certainly, Steve knew what the answer was. The other Rockefellers at the table knew what the answer was. Not sure his wife's family knew. But anyway, we were all on the answer to the question. His grandfather, Nelson Rockefeller, who was vice president of the United States of America under Gerald Ford, wrote that book. We were all laughing so hard. It was just incredible. It just craziness, just absolutely positively craziness. So we had dinner. I get in my truck and drive back and shared the story with my wife Kim, and we determined that's probably one of the greatest golf stories ever told. So I agree. That's probably one of the greatest golf stories ever told. And I'll leave it at that. And we'll come back with some more stories. Thank you. Oh, by the way, my email is 10301don, 10301don at gmail.com if you want to reach out. See ya.